chapter 13, start at verse 17. Fairly long reading. When Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them on the road to the Philistine country that was much shorter. For God said if they faced war, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by the desert toward the Red Sea. The Israelites went up out of Egypt and armed for battle. Moses took the bones of Joseph with him because Joseph had made the sons of Israel swear an oath, and he had said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up with you from this place. And after leaving Succoth, they camped at Etham on the edge of the desert. And by day the Lord went ahead of them in a pillar of cloud to guide them on their way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so that they could travel day or night. Neither the pillar of cloud by day nor the pillar of fire by night left its place in front of the people. And the Lord said to Then the Lord said to Moses, tell the Israelites to turn back and encamp near Pi-Hahiroth. Whatever it says, you know what it says. Near Pi. Between Migdol and the sea. They are encamped by the sea directly opposite Baal-Zephon. Pharaoh will think the Israelites are wandering around the land in confusion, hemmed in by the desert, and I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. But I will gain glory for myself through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites did this. And when the king of Egypt was told that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his officials changed their minds about him and said, what have we done? We've let the Israelites go and have lost their services. So he had his chariot made ready and took his army with him. He took 600 of the best chariots along with all of the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, so that he pursued the Israelites who were marching out boldly. And the Egyptians, all Pharaoh's horses and chariots, horsemen and troops, pursued the Israelites and overtook them as they camped on the sea near Pi, opposite of Baal-Zephon. And as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after him. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord, and they said to Moses, was it because there was no graves in Egypt that he brought us to the desert to die? What have you done to us, bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone? Let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. And Moses answered the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance of the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the waters so the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. Lord, we thank you for the day. We thank you so much for your word. We thank you for the opportunities you give us to study. Guide us, help us to understand, and help us apply our lives. In your son's name. I forgot one thing. Last week we were looking at the Exodus, specifically the Passover, which took place in the night of the final plague, which basically was a sacrifice of the firstborn. And I like to put it that way because that sacrifice applied to all people, not just the Egyptians, as we kind of hone in on. And when I say that, think about this. The firstborn of a man would die. The firstborn of every animal would die. At this time, God made it clear that he would make a distinction between the Israelites and his people. So even though he had deemed that all would die, he made a distinction. The distinction was this. He would pass over those who were faithful enough to do what he said that were part of his people. Okay? So it was a distinction because it had to do with his people. It wasn't just anybody. And it was ones that were faithful and did what he commanded them, which we studied last week. And then God would actually pass over them. Later we would find that they would be required to offer a sacrifice. And And thereon, there would have to be sacrifice made in that particular moment, annually, for this particular thing, to remember it. Because God passed them over, or saved them when he could have killed the firstborn, based on the fact that they were his people and they were faithful and did what he said. The faith was demonstrated, well, first of all, they had to sacrifice and eat a roasted lamb at twilight. And then their faith was demonstrated by taking that blood and placing it on the doorpost, or we call it door jambs, the header and the jambs, or whatever, the doors, so that God would see it and know that they had done what he had said, and in doing so, he would pass over them. Now, the fact of the matter is, it didn't matter if they were his people. If they didn't put the blood on the door jambs, what would happen? Firstborn would die. That's why I said from the beginning that it was really a sacrifice of the firstborn. And just because God passed over them, he did it by choice, but he took a sacrifice in its place, okay, in lieu of. So we see that God saved them by passing over them, even though the firstborn was part of their families as well. All right, he told them they needed to commemorate this in a lasting ordinance. The Passover feast would be on the 14th day of the first month every year, and would be followed by a feast called the Feast of the Unleavened Bread. It would go on for 7 days, and that was basically done in remembrance of the fact that they didn't have time to put yeast in their bread. They just had to take the dough and flee. So they basically ate unleavened bread for 7 days, and they would remember that from throughout their history. That would be one of their main feasts that they would do. And we see that at midnight, the Lord struck down the firstborn, starting with Pharaoh, and go on. It didn't matter whether they was a servant, a slave, Pharaoh's officials, a prisoner, the firstborn of all the humans, of all mankind, whatever the Egyptians, would die, as well as right all the way down to the livestock. So he took out the firstborn of every one. In the middle of the night, Pharaoh and all Egypt got up during the night. And the Bible says there was a loud wailing in Egypt, and every house had lost someone there. So the entire part of Egypt went in the morning immediately. And so during the night, at night, we find that Pharaoh summons Moses. He says, "Get over here right now." Moses comes over there and he says, "Get up, leave my people, you and those Israelites." He tells them, "Get out. Get out of here and take your livestock, whatever you need, just get out of here now. You've had enough." So we find that the Israelites journeyed from, that was in the area of Ramses, which we've talked about. Handy pointer. Up in here, and then they fled from there, and they all in the middle of the night came to a place called Succoth. This is one place they place it, this place down here, some people put it all the way down here, but basically they came out of here. I think it was in this area, right in here, and I'll show you why later. It's on the edge of the land of Goshen. It was like a gathering place where all the people came from their homes and everything, and it's like they all came, as the Bible says, to Succoth. And when they got to Succoth, they would gather together, and the Bible says that they numbered about 600,000 men, plus women, plus children, plus other peoples. I hadn't read that before, but it says other peoples. So there was other folks that wanted to get out of town too, that were not necessarily Egyptian heritage. So there were what later they would call Gentiles or whatever that left with them as well. So that's over 1 million people. We've said when we studied going into Joshua, they had over 1 million people. When you look at that, I mean, the numbers are still easy to do. You double that, say every man was married, you're at 1.2, and if you had the United States 2 kids, you're at 2.4, you know what I mean, or whatever. I don't know what it was, but it was, by their reckoning, it was way over 1 million people. All right. So, from Succoth, probably in this area, then it says that they headed to the Red Sea. And in the process of going towards the Red Sea, they went to a place called Etham, which is on the edge of the desert. All right, so he tells us, and we're in chapter 13. He tells them they're in Succoth, and they can't, leaving there, they camp to Etham, which is on the edge of the desert. That's someplace to remember because there's desert everywhere. But they were going somewhere to the desert. And some people will say this is it in this area here, and others will say no, it's the desert, which is, we know today, Saudi Arabia is one giant, the desert. So anyway, it says there, and he says, don't take a short route. What route was that?
Right
up here. Okay? That's a quick way. But he says, don't go that way. There you go. Let's look at some trade routes. So here you are in Egypt, and this would be the route up here by the sea or whatever. It says, don't go that way. Why? He didn't want to get in a war. He didn't want to get in a war. He's afraid they'd turn around and go that way. As we read, the first time they got into a pinch, what did they do? Help, take me back. You know? They're ready to surrender. So that's what God was saying. No, don't go that way. All right, so it says, don't take the route along the shore, and take Joseph and his bones with him, because they promised him on oath that they would do that. And then God went ahead of them and led them. The Bible says it was always ahead of them, except in specific instances. But when they went forward, he was ahead of them in the form of fire by day and cloud by night. Basically, so they knew that God was leading them, and that was the whole point. God was leading. What did I say? Okay. Cloud by day, fire by night. It's easier to see a fire in the night, I reckon. And let harder to see a cloud by night. Anyway, that way. So he would do that. When they would get to Etham, they would camp near, they get to Etham, God would tell them to turn around and go back. It says in chapter 14, go back and camp near Pi, higher up, between Migdal and the sea. And the purpose of that was to entice Pharaoh. Now, he had already hardened Pharaoh's heart, and Pharaoh had already decided, oh no, look what we've done. Now, the question we need to think in our minds is, was that overnight, the next morning when he woke up? That's what you saw on TV 20 years ago. Or was it more reality that they had all this mourning went on for a few days, and then suddenly, after they started burying the dead and everything, started going, wait a minute. Because one of the things that a lot of times we get this idea that this went bam, 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 but if you really look at the numbers, it takes 30 days before they ever even get to the area of a place. 30 days before they ever get, after they cross the Dead Sea, okay, get to the desert of sin, and they're not even to Mount Sinai. Okay? So, what happens takes place here, and Pharaoh is ready to come after them within a period of time, less than 30 days, I know that, and as soon as the next morning, and as he decides to come after them, they have gone to a place called Etham. Now, as we talk about this, all these towns, nobody has any confidence of any place. They have ideas based on new names that sound similar. They have ideas based on different things, geography, but there's several different things that cross into that. So I'll just tell you that at the beginning. So he goes to a place between Migdal and the sea, and there they are, and God hardens Pharaoh's heart, and he comes to pursue them. Pharaoh takes 600 of his best chariots, plus the rest of his army, and a bunch more chariots, and he comes after them to pursue them and run them down. Now, they're moving, a large group of people moving pretty quickly on land, for the obvious reason that if you stay, what's going to happen? You're going to die. So you're trying to get out, flee, as fast as you can, and with a group of people walking fast, or whatever. Now, in addition to that, so it's easy for a chariot to overtake you at any particular moment. So then we find that he comes after them with the chariots. The Israelites look back as they are approaching at this particular moment when they are at this high Hira. That's probably not even close. But while they're there, they see him and then they panic. And I like some of these, and I wrote these quotations down. Here's what the people said. What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? What did Moses say? I love this verse because it works for us today so well. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. What have they done so far? Nada. Put some blood on the doorpost. That's all they had done, which basically said, okay, I'll do what you say. Other than that, they had done nothing. So he says, all you need to do is stand still. And the next verse, God looks at Moses and says, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites, move on. And he goes on to tell him to raise your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea. And as Moses does this over the Red Sea, we see that as he does this, the Israelites, the pillar of cloud separated and went behind them to separate the Egyptian army. They could already see the army. That's how close they were. And it went and separated them so that they couldn't see through it to get to each other. All this took place. The Bible says that Moses raised his staff, his hand, over the sea, and an east wind blew across the Red Sea. And as he crossed, the wind blew all night and dried that out and separated the waters, the wall on the left and the wall on the right. And as he does that, then they cross the Red Sea on dry land. After they get across, it says the cloud then moves, the one that separates them, and suddenly the Egyptians see them and say, hey, if they can do it, we can do it. So we find the Egyptians go marching straight into the Red Sea on the dry land, and I'm going to say dry, I'm going to put an asterisk there, because the next thing we know, it says God confuses them, and all the wheels come off the chariot. What happens when the ground's only hard enough to walk on, but not hard enough to drive on? You get stuck. You ever been on a beach that's like that? You can walk on it, but the minute you put something on with wheels or point contact and you start digging with it or whatever, you get stuck. And that's what we find that takes place is the chariot suddenly start losing their wheels, and God causes them to go into confusion, and when they see what has happened, they say that the God of Israel must be working for them and against us, and what do? They bail out of their chariots and start heading back toward Egypt as quick as they can. And about that time, we find that God closes the sea and swallows up the Egyptian army. And as he swallows up the Egyptian army, it says that they're floating all over and everything, and completely destroys them so that Egypt will know that God was, like he said and demonstrated, with his people there. All right. So that's basically what the Bible says. All right, now a couple things I want to take the next few minutes, kind of go over some things. First of all, where did Israel cross the Red Sea? Steve's not here. He asked. I can tell you. 2 weeks ago yet. The answer is, I don't know. Nobody knows. We had some ideas and some things, and I want to show you some of the ideas. And all of them are based on the idea is, where is Mount Sinai? And the answer is, we don't know. We touched on that a few weeks ago when Moses first went to Mount Sinai. But there's some ideas based on the descriptions that are given in the Bible and some things, whatever, that people have. First of all, there's basically 3 different routes that are discussed. The first one is what they call the northern route. Let me see if I can find 3 routes. All right. I'm going to use this because it shows you something about, this is about that time. This is Egypt. This is the Egyptian Empire. Look at that right here. And we're going to notice that we talked about the fact that there was more and more wars and stuff that Egypt took control up here in the Syria area and Palestine area, because as those Hyksos moved out, they went after and started taking over and everything, and they extended their territory and control that way. Their territory also comes down. Now, this is the Sinai Peninsula right here. This here is Suez, Gulf of Suez, and this is Aqaba Gulf. All right, so the Suez Canal is actually right here. It comes up through here. They would have been over in this area right in here. Now, as they flee, he says, don't take the northern route. Here's your northern route, right up here. Goes up into this area here. All right, now, the northern route, some people think that this is it, and that the sea was an area of swamp land in this is it. This is north. This is the Mediterranean Sea. This is where the Suez Canal is. They think that right in this area right here, they went through this, and it was the Reed Sea. Because literally, the word for Red Sea in Hebrew means reed. Now, does that mean that it was called the Reed Sea, the Red Sea, or both? Actually, it could have been called both, because even in the major part of the Red Sea, there were reeds and stuff along the banks and everything there. The fact of the matter is, the description of what took place with walls on each side demonstrates that it's more than just a little swamp. But anyway, this here is swampy. One thing I pointed out earlier is, one thing that changes over time is the geography of the earth. You know, I know the Dead Sea is a lot, and the Jordan Valley is a lot drier today than it was 100 years ago and 1,000 years ago. They documented that. How far back and what, I don't know. So there could have been more water there than we know of today. However, this is very, very flat. So if it was there, it kind of went this way, not this way. So anyway, but then they believe it was there, and Mount Sinai is in a place out in the northern part of this area here. Let me go up to the basic map. Right up in this area, right in here. There's a mount there called Jebel Eliel, or Tel El, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's right in this area. And they think he went this way. The problem I have with that, Exodus 13:17 says don't go that way. That's the short route. But to me, I automatically exclude that. The Bible says so I'm using that to exclude it, forget about what archaeologists and all that say. But that is one of the routes. Now, it's not a very popular one, but it is one of them that is used to dictate. The next route is what is called the southern route, or the traditional route. In the traditional route, they crossed either in the swampy area here, or the Great Bitter Lake right in here, or they crossed right in here, the Red Sea, and then they basically came down to a place where modern day tradition, they have named this Mount Sinai. Doesn't mean it was then, but it's been named that, and they call it, I said all this took place in this area right here. All right. Now, thing about this is, this Mount Sinai was named in the 4th century. It wasn't named before that. It was named randomly. It wasn't because they found a sign that said, hey, this is Mount Sinai. It was because there was a pilgrimage, a Catholic pilgrimage in the 4th century that went down there, and they looked at it, and they said, they were down in this area, and they looked up and said, this must be Mount Sinai. And so they determined that, and that name stuck since the 4th century. The issue I have with that is that just because they said that doesn't make it so. And I've been in Israel where these crusaders have come through and named things and certain things, and we know for a fact that there's no way they know that cave was the one Jesus was born in. You know, but they named it, they put a church on it. Well, they did the same thing here. They put a church there. Or a cathedral or a monastery or whatever, which is now Muslim, by the way. It's changed. This is not Christian territory. All right. So the other thing I have that I think we need considering this is this. See this territory? We're talking about all this being Egyptian territory. If, in fact, that's where all the Exodus took place, and they crossed the Red Sea here, they spent all their time in this area, all this is Egyptian territory. Whereas, if you were leaving Egypt to get away, why would you hang out in a place where the Egyptian military is? I'll put that here in just a minute, a little bit more. The third theory is this. It's called the Arabian route, or the non-traditional. Instead of crossing the Red Sea in the Suez, Gulf of the Suez, they crossed it in the Gulf of Aqaba, here. And so, when they fled, they would have taken this trade route right here, straight across to the Sea of Aqaba, the Gulf of Aqaba on the Red Sea, and then that would place Sinai in this area, or there's another proposed location down in here more. Either one of those are on the back of the desert, the Great Desert. All right, but here's the trade route. It does leave Egypt. Let's see. There's two locations. Sinai would be right in here. Would be Jebel al-Lawz, and then down here is an inactive volcano, Mount Bedr, which at that time they said could have been active. I don't know. Now, this one here is, we'll look at all of them, but to me, I prefer this based on the following thing. Aqaba is identified in 1 Kings, right here, as the Red Sea. This was called the Red Sea in 1 Kings. Galatians, Paul tells us that Mount Sinai in Arabia. Doesn't call for it over here, it calls for it over here. So those two things biblically have two scriptural things that kind of point in that direction. Other than that, no. All right. With that in mind, let me take a few minutes before I go any further. Any questions?
I don't know how many chariots was in this army.
600 plus.
So the water would have had to have been wide enough for those to get 600 end to end to be in there to destroy all of them.
Absolutely.
I have no idea what width any of those areas are.
Exactly.
Unless they were going 10 abreast.
Yeah, but still, that's a lot. All right. Keep that in mind because I'm going to show a couple pictures and some things or whatever related to that. All right? One thing to remember here is they left Ramses, went to Succoth. This seems to be a gathering point, and from there they went to the edge of the desert, a place called Heath. They turned back at God's direction, back away from the edge of the desert to a place called Phai, which is east of or opposite of Baal Zephon, near Migdol. That is where they crossed the Red Sea. All right? Now, that's, by the way, I've got two different lists here. This is Exodus. Over here is Numbers. Numbers 33 gives like a military march description. We went from here, camped here, camped here, camped here, went here, went here. Oh yeah, that was the place where they needed the water, and went here, and here, and it goes on. Just like that, Numbers 33. So you can go through there, and we'll go through the whole list of stuff after that. All right. But before they even get, after all this takes about 30 days. All right, with that, let me go back to here. I'm going to start here. All right. The northern route. I already said it's prohibited. We've gone through swampland. This is what the territory looks like. You can see how green it is here. It goes into the deserty area here, and it goes across here. There is virtually no water to swallow up 600 plus chariots. There is no place really for large whatever. It's prohibited by God. It makes zero sense to me. Now, what I'm going to go through here is my thoughts on this, okay? Now, you can take your own thoughts and pick however you want, because none of it's right or wrong. Or all of it's right or wrong. I don't know. We don't know. But these are what's think. All right, so that's the northern route. The next one is the southern route, which is the traditional. Okay. All right. We're looking at everything as if we were going east, which is the way they would have been taking their trek, okay? All right, so here they are over here. traditional, or what they call the southern route, one of two things would take place. They would either cross through this swamp, which I just totally throw out. It just doesn't make sense based on the Bible. There is a place called here, the Bitter Lake or something. Yeah, Lake Bitter. Whatever it is. Anyway, Bitter Lake or something like that right in here, that is big enough to cross over. Now, I will show you that. Right, Great Bitter Lake, there it is. Alright, if you look closely, you can see land right across there. This is a very large lake. This is not Nickajack. This is something that the lake is, the seashore is on the far side. But to do that, it basically, as we saw a minute ago, you would be it's going to do this every time. Apparently so. Oh, I know why. Alright, as you can see right here, is that lake right here. They would cross right across here to get through there. Alright. It's Lake Bitter. Alright, the issues I have with it, and goes back to this sign up here. Sorry about that. I keep forgetting. The reason it's reloading is because I haven't loaded, but I'm pushing the wrong button. I'm pushing the one that can say, okay, where is it at? Alright, now, the southern route depends upon them basically crossing this area and then going down here to the Sinai Peninsula. I'm sorry. Okay. Crossing the Great Bitter where I saw it, or here is the one at the northern Suez Canal. If you came in down here, it's the Suez Canal, the northern, they say the other places, all these other places that take place until they back up and they get trapped in the sea is right here. And then they cross right over to this part, into the Sinai Peninsula.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Yay, goes that. All right, so they would have either crossed here at Lake Bitter, and then they would have gone down here to where Mount Sinai, and then the traditional site is located here. They would have gone up and down right through here. Or they would have come down here and crossed right across here. And that picture I just showed you a minute ago. All right? One of those two. All the places before you get to the Red Sea would have had to take place. If it was up here, it would have to be all up in this area, all those areas. And Pharaoh would have been very short, 1 day away. Down here, it was just a day or two away. It was a day or so away from him. A couple days at max, and a few days for the Israelites. After this, and then we come down in this area right here. Now, the problem I have with this here is that First of all, it was only named in the 4th century. Nobody has known, even thought of that area until they found it in the pilgrimage there and said, hey, this is that, and it was named. This route was completely under Egyptian control, and God had specifically said, don't go this way because you will get in a war. And he didn't want them to be convinced to turn around and go back. So he wouldn't put them in a place where they would be staying, where they would encounter military conflict. As a matter of fact, Moses had spent 40 years, they all spent 40 years after this in this area. Not one time do we find that they get in conflict with the Egyptian army. So they're out of the way from the Egyptian army where they're not going to deal with it. It's it.
Army was round, so.
Yeah. That's true. But he, as history is going to show, that he rebuilds his army and he goes on and next several hundred years, they do a lot of terror up and down the coast up there toward the Philistines for the next 20 or 30 years specifically in this particular time frame. So it could be either way there. There's very little water found in this area region where Sinai would have been up in here. There's very little water for them, but God could have provided it, so that's the secondary issue. This was a major mining area right here during this whole time. And they had a military outpost right here at that time to protect that mining rights, because they were the ones that were mining, I think it's copper or whatever, during the Bronze Age and stuff, and they were mining and they were shipping it up here and all over the world. And all this was taking place right in here. And to me, if you're fleeing the land, why run into a military outpost? Why would you go right through a major Egyptian place? Plus, as we saw on that map, this was basically militarily controlled by Egypt as part of their empire. This area from here to the west, which is down. Okay? The Red Sea to cross was either this or this, which this, in my mind, is the only thing that even fits. But that means that they had intended to go down this way in the first place. So why did they go down here when everything is this way? So that does that's the question. Now the reality is they could have come to here, and that's where they turned around and God said, hey, go this way. So they'll come after you and think you're trapped. So that's a possibility. All right? Now, the other, for the Arabian route, right map instead of arbitrarily. Okay, the Arabian route would basically mean, or the non-traditional route, in which more and more studies are leaning toward that direction. The leaning's right, they just seem to be leaning. They would have left here, and they would have been fleeing this way, and then one of the main trade routes is either this way, or straight across from the northern end of this, across to here. So it's like they would have come to Succos, which most people think is in this region somewhere, and then headed straight across. And there is, the terrain there is basically high country desert, what it is. It's not mountainous like this, it's flatter or whatever. I gotta keep moving. But they would have come across in this area, or some say they came around this way, and then they're crossing the Red Sea. One place would have been in here, the other one would have been they came to here, and he said turn around and go back to, and they would have come down in here and cross to this area. Over here is the likely site, the Arabian Mount Sinai is in this area. And then way south is one, the volcano. Now, last thing I'll show you is, remember I said down at the, where the, that's the Gulf of Aqaba, they're crossing. Down at the Gulf of Aqaba, down at where it connects to the Red Sea proper, down at the peninsula point on that side, this is looking across at that particular point, if they would have crossed at that southern part of the Sea of Aqaba. Which would have been right here. And then there's this all desert. Keep in mind, the Midianites, this was their town right here. This is where Moses hung out, in this area right here. Next thing is, here's the crossing at this point right here. Would look like that. See it crossing that particular part of the sea. Both of those would have fit the description, would have worked just fine. East wind would have come across, blew them apart or whatever. Now, a couple of things to think about this. It's outside Egyptians' control. When Moses fled, where'd he go? Far away from Egypt as he could go. Far away from Egypt as he could go. He went over here and then he came down here in Midian, out of Egypt's hands. He couldn't do anything. There was no real powers over there. These were all nomads. They were descendants of Ishmaelites. They were descendants of Midian, which is Keturah, one of Abraham's other wives. They were all nomads. There was no military control. It was all deserts, and more specifically, the farther you got this way, it got even worse. The desert was the backside of Sinai. Sinai was at the back of the desert, backside of the desert. The desert is out here to the east, the great desert, and the backside would have been right in here where he could have been into. When he saw it, we talked about it before. When Moses left Egypt, he fled. I mean, he ran. Took the fastest way. He didn't go looking through mountain routes. He went down the road. Fast he goes. This is a natural trade route that takes you straight over there. When Moses came back from here, the Bible says he stopped at Mount Horeb and met up with his brother before he continued back to here. So somewhere between here and here, he passed Mount Sinai. Because he came by it and met his brother and then came on back. All right? Now, as the Exodus, as they flee, they're trying to get out of town and get away. What would Moses do? Well, logically, unless he's told to do something different, he would flee like he did before, get out of town. And that would be the easiest way to take 1-2 million people is that down the road and get them out of Egypt's control. And toward God's mountain, wherever that is. All right? 1 Kings chapter 19:26 said Solomon had ships on the Red Sea. He said he had ships near Elath of Edom. Keep in mind, Edom is right in here, which is just south of the Dead Sea. Dead Sea's right up here. All that same Jordan River Valley all connects together here. So this is Edom right in here. And so we find that in Kings, Solomon had ships there, and that's defined as this right here. This area right here. The next thing is Galatians. Paul says in chapter 4, verse 25, that he tells us that, talking about the two different covenants, and he's talking about Hagar, who was Abraham's wife and the mother of Ishmael, who was sent out into the Arabian desert, represents or stands for Mount Sinai, which is in Arabia. That's what Paul said. So, if this is Arabia, this is where Hagar and Ishmael was sent out to, and Paul says that Hagar stands for, represents Mount Sinai in Arabia. So Paul says, now, have you been talking over here? Possibly, but this is really all throughout the Bible. When we talk about Arabia and everything and all that, we always talk about everything on the other side of the Dead Sea and south and there. All right, that's the only thing I got for now. I'm over. Any questions? All right, we'll talk about a little bit about this here, probably next week and a little bit next, because we'll be looking at some things that take place, and we'll eventually get to Mount Sinai, and we'll take a look at some of those things. All right, thanks.